So Iowa State corner, he's a senior. They got him listed at 6'2". I think he's 6'1".
Probably.
Yeah, I think he's more like 6'1". But you would believe he's 6'2" because when you watch him out there on the field, like you mentioned, he's got pterodactyl arms. He's got super long arms. I don't know if it's going to be as long as Joey Porter Jr.'s wingspan was, but probably not because Joey Porter Jr.'s was like historically big.
Insane.
But it's going to be that same kind of mold. And normally when you get corners that are bigger and taller, you're sacrificing something, right? A lot of bigger, taller corners have clunkier footwork. They don't flip the hips as fluidly. The agility, the stop and start, that's, it takes them longer to do. They have more body mass to move. And so it is tougher to do that as fast as some of these smaller corners are. But for Tampa, I mean, he is a all-around athlete, used to be a wide receiver, was actually, I think he was recruited as a wide receiver.
I believe so too. So
he was. He played both sides of the ball in high school, which is hilarious that his name is TJ Tampa, and he's from St. Petersburg, Florida. Anybody who's been to St. Petersburg, Florida knows that it is right next to where Tampa, Florida is. So what I'm saying is, this guy's a
basketball player too, right?
Future Buccaneer, great. Yes.
Very good basketball player.
Comes from a basketball background, very good basketball player. Ends up going to Iowa State, and I think he chose Iowa State over Georgia when it was all said and done. But this dude's got some really nice advanced PFF metrics as well. His win above replacement this past season, actually, this is from 2022, was 0.31, which is really high for a corner. I mean, that's one of the higher marks. And then his forced incompletion percentage, you want to talk about a guy who's able to get his hands on the football, get passes broken up, get interceptions. 20.7% forced incompletion percentage. That is in the 98th percentile of corners who are in this class and other recently drafted corners as well. So it's not just the guys in this class. It's also the corners who got drafted relatively high who are kind of like sticking around the league. That's kind of the pool that we have it all in when we come up with these percentiles. So really good mark from him there. The strengths are pretty obvious from him, right? He's got the long arms. He's got the long legs. He can play in press, but he doesn't play as much press as you would expect. He's not just this exclusive press man type of corner. Like when people watch Kyrie Jackson, the corner from Oregon, he is, 6'2", 205 pounds, right? He's a very similar type of build to what TJ Tampa is, but Jackson is exclusively playing at the line of scrimmage. He's trying to get hands on you. He's trying to be physical with you. Tampa will be physical with you, but a lot of what Iowa State asked him to do actually comes from an off coverage alignment. And you would think that that would get a bigger corner sort of stuck in a bad spot, but that's when you see him shine. That's when you see, okay, this bigger, longer corner, he can move a little bit here, right? He can turn and run. The flips, the hips are fluid. He's able to put his foot in the ground and really go explode, especially when it's downhill. And he's got the long speed to be able to keep up with people. So outside of maybe wanting him to be more experienced in press, and yeah, okay, the long speed's not as fast as some of the other guys at the top of this list. There's not a lot he does not do well. And I just feel as though he maximizes so much of his physical gifts in the ways that you would expect and in the ways that you don't, particularly in his footwork, how clean his footwork is, how precise it is, how controlled it is. That's what allows him to be a really high impact corner with his size and then also being able to play off coverage. So this is somebody that I really enjoyed. He's a top 100 lock for sure, but I think that he is somebody who could certainly go a lot higher than that as well.
Yeah, I think with the testing, he's going to lock himself into the second round. I think he'll. So I'm pretty positive he's 6'1". I agree with you. He'll be 200 pounds, maybe bigger. I think he's going to jump 40 inches in the vert. And I think
you think he's going to hit 40?
Yeah, I actually would be floored if he didn't. And he's going to run really well at that size.
Mm-hmm.
So that you brought up the press. It was a good sign that there was a jump from 2022. So 153 of his 384 coverage snaps in 2023 were in press. That was a big jump. But because in 2022, it was like there wasn't much at all.
You're right.
So we got a little bit more. I just think the reach allows him to make some pretty rare pass breakups that guys in this class don't make, where they're there and maybe they get in the way but his arms just get involved in the catch point where like, whoa, he was not a foot behind the play, but he wasn't on the guy.
To your point about Kamari, where some of his pass breakups are just him being there, Tampa's are intentional. Like Tampa's getting his hand in there to get this pass breakup. So I agree with you.
Absolutely. I think the only things I wrote down in some negatives is that you want to keep seeing that PBU number go up to converted INTs. And it got a lot better this year. In 2022, when I liked him over the summer, I was like, man, he just doesn't take away the football a lot. He's just breaking up the ball. Mm-hmm. And this year, I thought it got better. I want to see that continue to go up. He lunges as a tackler rather than coming to balance and wrapping. I think it's because he's a bigger guy and he's like, I could blow this guy up. And he has some big hits on tape, but he has some big misses on tape. He missed 7 tackles in 2023. And I do think he's a complete the assignment rather than change the game mindset right now. And that's what a lot of these guys are. Like, he's going to take away his guy rather than take a ton of risk. But with the kind of athlete he is and the kind of build he has, like this is what the NFL looks for at corners right now. They almost overdraft them. If you're big, long, can run, and you're smart and tough, you're gonna go early. And TJ Tampa, because of that, is gonna go early. He'll go in the second round. So definitely a guy that we liked on this show for a bit.
I feel as though he is the least talked about corner who deserves to be talked about more. If that phrase makes sense at all.
It makes a ton of sense. I don't ever hear him in the conversation. I hear Amari Lassiter brought up a lot more than him.
Right. And that's the thing. Like I'm not even talking about at the top with Wiggins and DeJean. Like I'm not talking about that. It's Kamari Lassiter's kind of had his time in the draft space. Like people have talked about him. Quinyon Mitchell, who we'll get to, and it's Rakestraw, I think has had his time like popping up, very popular name that we'll see like on social media or draft circles, whatever. Not enough people are talking about TJ Tampa. I think you're obviously even a little bit higher on him than I am, and I might get to exactly where you're at with him because you watch his tape and it's hard to find stuff that you would say is like a deal breaker for him. Because like I even have written in my notes verbatim when I talked about the long speed. Long speed can appear to be an issue at times, but it's plenty adequate and not nearly as bad as you might expect with a player of his size. In fact, it's actually more impressive. So compared to his peers, like compared to how fast you might need to be a successful NFL corner, I don't know, maybe there are times where he's turning and running and flipping the hips where he's a step or two behind. But normally with guys who are built like him, they get burned a lot worse than that. So maybe it isn't as bad as I originally thought. So